Hey guys, it's Tikosor. So today I have a new gaming monitor to test out by Samsung, which is Odyssey OLED G8 81 SF 32-inch gaming monitor. It's the first time that I'm going to experience a QD-OLED display. So I'm quite excited for this one. However, I've read that it used DisplayPort 1.4 instead of 2.1. So that was quite sad to know. I wanted to run it at 2.1 rather than use DFSC. I also know that this one doesn't have any kind of a chip. It doesn't have any upscaling chip like the previous one of the last year. So that also put me off a little bit. So we're going to see together this gaming monitor by Samsung, if it's going to live up to the hype. Its model number S32FG810SU. So that's the model name. We're going to do the unboxing, experience it from first person. Okay. The first thing that I saw and stood out the most is this core brick, which is quite chunky in my opinion. It's the biggest that I've seen for a monitor. It has this cable, you can see, that you plug to the monitor, but as far as size, it's very, very big and quite heavy. Anyway, we'll put it aside. We have some cables as well. You have this power cable, DisplayPort. So you can see it's probably 1.4. We also have an HDMI 2.1. Quite nice that they have this cover. So you can see it's ultra high speed HDMI 2.1 probably. So it comes with a DisplayPort and HDMI 2.1. Some documentations, and this here a quick guide. Here they show you some way to tilt it or put it in portrait, so you can adjust lots of stuff. And here they show you for VESA mount for both of 27 and 32. It's 100x100. It shows you how to install it. Like you'll see how to install the disc mount. Here you can see the disc mount that comes with it. A little bit heavy. It has a silverish looking to it. Nice finish here. And it has here for cable management, so you can put cables and look them. Here there is a film. So this stand also silverish looking, pretty heavy in my opinion, like not really that light but not that heavy. So it has some paddings also. Nice. And here we have the monitor. So here we are. I've just put it here so we can see the input that we have. We have this one DC for power. And here we have a DisplayPort 1.4 as we said. We have two HDMI 2.1 and an audio jack, USB port, a USB port for connecting it to PC. So it can transfer data using this port. And we have a USB port, another one for service. Here's they've written service, but you can also use it as well. So for anything else. And here we have a power button and a joystick actually. So it's not only a power button, but also a joystick to change settings of the display. And here we have our core sync or RGB. I believe here it's going to light up. Now to install the disk stand, you shouldn't install it directly on monitor. First, you will need to install this piece. You need to connect it to this part. So the way to do it, put it like this and Once you put it, just give it a rotation. You can see now it's in. Just rotate it and you hear a click. So I heard a click, and here you can see now it's sturdy. This button should be at the top. And when you want to release them, you just press this one and rotate. So now it's good to go. You can see very, very firm. And it's good to go. It comes with this protective film that you will need to remove. Very good ergonomics. You can do a swirl here, left and right. It goes like this, and up or down, just up. Actually, you can't put it down, just up. And then rotate it if you would like to have it in portrait, and put it like this. So nice adjustability, nice ergonomics, and just expect that display to be very, very thin. In fact, you can see it's less than a centimeter, like 3 millimeter. It has a matte finish. You can see if I direct a light to it, like it's not going to reflect anything. You can't see anything in my room, nothing at all. Okay, so are you guys ready to fire it up? Because I am. First time QD-OLED. Where was it? There we go. I did a close-up picture, and those are the sub-pixel structure array. From this picture, we can say that it's a QD-OLED Gen 3. When you click that joystick, shows you like those actions. So we have PIP, we have power off, return, source, report, HDMI 1, HDMI 2, and here menu. So in menu, what do we have? We have adaptive sync is turned on. We have black equalizer. So you can see it's giving some blackness. So I'll keep it now to default. Virtual aim, infinity core lighting. So by default, it's turned off. We turn it on. So for light effect, it's not very brightful. However, it's going to add a little bit of RGB behind the screen. So we have Aurora rotation, Comet, static, rainbow, and FreeSync. But you can see that when you select static, you can also change the colors that you would like. And you can also activate core sync, which could assign colors based on what's showing on screen. For other stuff for gaming, we have screen size wide or auto. So by default, it's set to wide. Now you will notice that it's quite dim, because that's normal, because picture mode is set to echo. So I don't want to set it to echo. We have entertain, which is quite blue, graphic, echo, and game standard, and RPG, RTS, FPS, sport, original, and custom. Like custom, you can change it the way you like, between brightness, contrast, sharpness, stuff like this. But I want to have it on game standard, and then brightness, set brightness to maximum. Okay, maximum brightness is 50. Contrast is set by default to 50. Sharpness 10, and that's it. Color 30. maximum is 50. Then we have contrast enhancer. You can see I put it to high. HDR tone mapping, so we'll need to enable HDR for this. Color tone is set to standard. You can change it to cool if you would like, or warm, or something like this. And natural, there's also natural. So yeah, standard is quite blue. I would put it on natural. Can change the white balance, red, green, blue. Gamma, change the gamma. And shadow detail, if you would like. Color space between native, normal, and auto. So I'll keep it to native. Auto is quite like desaturated as far as I can see. Perhaps native is better. Peak brightness, it's turned off for now. Black level as well. Eye saver mode turned off. Screen adjustment, calibration report. So yeah, that's a report. And PIP, you can see on screen display, can change its language, stuff like this. System, see color mode, if energy turned off, volume, off timer, PC AV mode, DisplayPort version 1.4, unfortunately. And here you can auto source switch plus, panel care. So we have pixel refresh and logo brightness between off, low, or high. OLED on, only on standby or working. So this way it will be on. Setup, custom key is PIP ultra wide. You can change that third action. VRR control, so turn on VRR control. Okay. I'll turn on HDR. Now that I activated HDR, some settings are going to be activated, and those are the ones that I actually found the best for me. Like for some it may be different, but for me personally, I quite like it. So let's see what I changed. So I have adaptive sync turned on, which is going to be G-Sync compatible. And instead, if you have an AMD Radeon GPU, you are going to benefit from FreeSync Premium Pro. But if you have an RTX GPU, it's going to be G-Sync compatible at least. So I also have black equalizer to 0. Some people will like it to be set on 5. But instead, I opted for having it on 0 because I like to have deeper blacks, and like it's going to enhance the dimensional of screen. Like the shapes are going to show a little bit more when you have it set to 0. Instead, when you have it on 5, it's not really going to be so bad. However, for me personally, I prefer it to be on 0. It depends on game. Perhaps you are going to change it based on the game or scenario. But to me, usually in Windows at least, and in most of games, I would set it to 0. For picture, I have picture mode set to game standard, and brightness to 50, contrast to 50, sharpness to 10, color to 35 to add some vividness, contrast enhancer on high, so I prefer it this way. As you can see, it dramatically changed the picture. I also have HDR tone mapping set to active, color tone set to natural, so I prefer it not to be so cool and not so warm. Natural for me is quite okay, I would say. It's better than standard or others. White balance to default, all of them are 0. Gamma also to 0. Shadow detail to -5. Now, as I said before, I prefer to have deeper blacks. It will help to define shapes a little bit more to me. Like when you set it to 0, which is a default, you can see that some shapes are washed up, like they become less defined. While for me, setting it to -5 is going to like enhance shapes and give them more definition. You can also set it to -3, etc., -2. It's going also to be good enough. Color space to native, which is going to refine the spectrum of colors. I prefer it always to be on native. Peak brightness is turned off. and it's going to adjust the maximum peak brightness. Like as you can see, I keep it off because when you have it like on high, it's going to dim a lot the picture. Black level on DisplayPort is turned off, so black level option is exclusive to HDMI. Eye saver mode is turned off. You can also change it to whatever you would like. Now that we finished with the picture section, let's hit on to the system. In the system settings, there is a feature called See Colors mode, designed to assist users with color blindness by applying specific color filters. While experimenting with it, I noticed something interesting when set to Deuteranopia 10. The screen appears ever so slightly brighter. It doesn't seem to alter the image itself, but to my eyes, there's a subtle increase in the brightness and contrast. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but in person, it feels like a noticeable difference. Maybe they have tuned brightness and contrast ever so slightly higher, so that's why it got this effect. So you can feel free to try it on and see if it works the same for you. Now, other things here in PC AV mode, I set the DisplayPort to PC. Even if you have connected the PS5 or Xbox Series X, the best way is going to be set it to PC, because PC is enhanced more for games and even on game consoles, while AV is made for watching movies or other video content, maybe preferred for like a larger, more cinematic experience. So PC is more accurate and provides reproduction of the image as intended by game developers. So it often like minimize image enhancement and processing, such as over sharpening or color adjustments. So it's better than having it on AV mode when you are planning to use it for mostly for gaming, even for gaming consoles. While if you are planning to watch movies or video contents mostly, you can switch it to AV mode. So AV mode is more like enhancing image size and may apply color and contrast adjustment to improve the viewing experience for movies or other video content. You can switch between each of them, and if you find like a difference, you can pick the ones that you would like. But it's not going to be an issue in terms of refresh rate or anything else, just about image processing. Now, still in system, down here we find the panel care. Local brightness set to high. This doesn't mean that I'm hurting the OLED panel the most. In fact, it means that I'm helping it a lot by like having this effect set to the maximum. So I means here it's going to lower brightness of fixed images the most. Maybe you would like to have it on low or turned off altogether, that this won't change really a lot. But if you have like a static image, setting it on high is much preferred for longevity of the OLED panel. But anyways, this monitor also have pixel shifting. So every few minutes, image is going to shift. So it's also much helpful for OLED panel. And you can't change this option. Like it's going to be applied automatically and you can't change it. We also have pixel refresh. So every few like weeks, you can do a pixel refresh. I also have variable refresh rate control on. And now, as you can see here in the information, I have this software version, 1000.1. Other things like here you can see in information, HDR mode turned on, adaptive sync turned on, connected to DisplayPort at 4K, 240 Hertz. Now, a good practice to do is going to the monitor page and go to manual and download its official driver by Samsung. You can see here like it's going to install driver for all of the monitor components. So it's going to be more compatible with Windows this way and like more optimized. I recommend that you install this driver. Now, another thing that I also recommend is going to Windows Store and install Windows HDR Calibration, which is an application that you can use like to calibrate the monitor. So basically just like calibration software, like on PS5 or Xbox, on the first minimum luminance, you set it until you can't see the shape anymore. So in this case, for me, it's 0, since it's an OLED. It has infinity contrast levels. And for maximum luminance, I've set it all the way to 400. For me, like at 400, it's not visible anymore. Finally, at max full frame luminance, I also set it to 400. As for me, it's not visible anymore, but it depends like if you are able to see it at more or less. You just need to set it until you can't see the shape anymore. So that's very easy to calculate. Okay, finally, you can do also color saturation. I just set it to default because I already modified colors on the display on menu. So I don't need to like over saturate it or give it burnt colors, let's say. And here finally you can name the profile. So here I name it to G8 OLED, and that's it. And here you can see on the display in color profile, there is now G8 OLED when I activated HDR. So we are all good to go here. Now also in HDR settings, you can set it auto HDR. In some games which doesn't have a native support for HDR, sometimes Windows is able to give them an HDR treatment to enhance their brightness and colors. So you can also activate this one if you would like, and as well as HDR video streaming. You can also control HDR content brightness in Windows, like if you find it to be over bright or not bright enough, you can change the slider to whatever you would like. So for me personally, I will set it to 30, and this way I can see everything, nothing is too over bright in HDR. Another settings found in advanced display. Here you can see it's set to 4K at bit depth 10. You can see that I set refresh rate to 240 Hertz. So make sure that you set it also this way, so you can get the most out of it. And in NVIDIA app, like it depends if you have an AMD Radeon GPU, you are going to have different settings. But in here in NVIDIA RTX, under display tab, I activated G-Sync. As you can see, I did the activation on full screen and windowed mode. So perhaps sometimes you will set the game on borderless window. So make sure that you set it on full screen and windowed. Display properties, you can see here, it's set to 4K, refresh rate 240 Hertz, orientation landscape, and in scaling, I set it to aspect ratio and scaling device on display. So also here 4K, 240 Hertz. And in color mode, I set it to NVIDIA and set output color depth to 10. So the maximum that's possible on this display. Output color format to RGB, output dynamic range to full. And here, like, I just tuned the blue colors a little bit because I found it a little bit warm, still with the natural mood that we set on the monitor. I would prefer it to be a little bit cooler. So I tuned the blue color channel like to 55 for me. That's the sweet spot. This way it feels more calibrated to me. And I left everything else at default. I didn't change anything, just blue brightness to 55 up from 50. So let's get on now to test, and starting on with this one test pattern. All colors are showing pretty well. On white, you can see it's pretty bright. Like I don't see any kind of defects and issues with it. It's not so cool nor warm. So to me, that feels so much more natural. And like red, you can see it's well saturated, as well as the green and the blue. All colors are showing pretty nicely. Now in uniformity, you can see there is literally zero uniformity issues since it's an OLED. So you're not going to suffer from dirty screen effect or like showing some patches of darker gray or lighter gray. It has a 10-bit color depth, so gradients are not an issue. You're not going to see color banding. Now in text sharpness, if I did a close-up shot, you can see that text are pretty clear, but there is some shadowing around it. On a black display, this is how it's going to look like. It's still very clear, and I didn't find an issue with text sharpness. Now let's head on to the UFO test. And here, whether this monitor is going to be very, very well, you can see there is literally no response issues, no ghosting, no pixel shifting. In terms of response time, it's very, very great. Now you can see like in real time, when I scroll down, there is no ghosting or after image or like pixel smearing. So it's totally an awesome display when it comes to response time. When it comes to viewing angles, you are not going to have also any kind of issue here. Colors aren't shifting or changing at all, no matter how much I change an angle. So It's pretty great when it comes to viewing from a different angles. If you have someone next to you watching, they are going to see pretty much the same image quality as you do, so it doesn't suffer from those issues. So you can view it from a different angles and it's not going to be a problem. So it's great, very great. Now when it comes to local dimming, given that it's an OLED, so it's going to be pitch black, no problems at all. And I just found it pretty amazing how bright it is. Like you can see it's lighting up my whole disk, just the light coming from display. Like it's total pitch black in background and the shapes are very, very bright. It's just amazing. And also I tested ABL or auto brightness limiter. I didn't even notice that it's changing brightness. So it's amazing to know that it's more optimized for desktop use, given that the monitor. I will leave you on with some picture quality videos so you can see for yourself how the image looks like. Now here we are in PC gaming. I would like to show you some settings that I opted to use. I said earlier that I will set black equalizer to 0. Now here I'll show you why to me it looks much better when I set it like to 5. It adds a little bit of like a gray filter on top of all screen. Even though it's an OLED, but to me it feels like there is a little bit of a gray a filter on top of screen. And when I put it like to 0, it just becomes completely defined to me. And contrast enhancer is also set to high. This is going to help. HDR tone mapping is to active. Like to me, active looks brighter and much better in quality. You can see color tone is natural. So yeah, the other mode seems a little bit more inclined to color temperatures like warm or cool, while natural feels like natural. Now in this game, I kept shadow detail to 0. It feels a little bit more okay here. Like it depends on the game and scenario. In Cyberpunk, I kept it to 0. So you can always switch to whatever you would like. Color space to native. Peak brightness to off as it feels the brightest at off. Again, as I said before, the Tronopia to 10 is going to be the brightest. Like to me, it feels this way. You can see also here, it's ever so slightly more bright with this color filter. So here is like a footage of gameplay at 4K without X5090. You can see we are hitting over 200 FPS. So it's going to take the full advantage of its 240 Hertz refresh rate. Everything feels very defined. I can see all buildings, and HDR is truly amazing. You can see under the bridge how like it's just the best contrast levels that I've seen ever on a monitor. It's just amazing. Also, colors are pretty nice, saturated, and are waved. However, they are not oversaturated. So image feels pretty realistic and feels like defined. I found it the best. Perhaps my camera isn't able to capture the whole picture, but hopefully you are going to take a small idea about it. So it feels like amazing. It's very bright. It's at the same time, it has deep black, as you see, like in places where it's black, it's showing a true blackness level. So image feels very crisp, feels also very like smooth, you know. There is no like a transitional issues in pixels, and there is no pixel shifting issues. So no problems with color banding as well. It's the best experience that I had on a gaming monitor. I would have preferred it to be much bigger, like a 42. Even though we are using a DisplayPort 1.4, we are still able to run 240 Hertz at 4K thanks to DSSC. I don't see problems with image fidelity, so I guess that's why perhaps they opted to use it instead of DisplayPort 2.1 as a native solution. But I would have preferred it to be DisplayPort 2.1 anyway. And here we are at night in game. You can see it's pitch black in sky, and like the neons, the lightings, the city lightings are showing pretty nicely. Very waved, very bright. Like it just feels the best experience, as I said before. I'm just out of words to say how much I really love the image quality. It looks very, very beautiful, very responsive at the same time. And I would say the best contrast levels that I've seen on a display. Colors are pretty saturated. They are waved. Image feels pretty alive and defined. So no problems with color reproduction. No problems with ghosting. It's simply one of the best experiences that I've seen on a gaming monitor. And here we are in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like I just wanted to show you this footage so you can appreciate how nice it is actually in HDR after tuning and after all those settings. To me, this feels like HDR looks very amazing on this game. It feels cinematic. It feels also very responsive. We have high FPS thanks to RTX 5090. So together, this combination is going to have a great harmony in gaming. You can see shadows aren't pitch black, they are true. That's how the HDR is supposed to be. Overall, I would say it's a great experience with gaming on PC, no problems at all. And where there is like a black area, it's going to have a pitch black shadows depending on area. So that's how I like it. Now on PS5, you can see on current video output signal, it support 120 Hz refresh rate on PS5. HDR is supported, VRR is turned on. However, ALLM is turned off because this one isn't a TV, so auto low latency mode is going to be disabled. However, this feature serves more for TVs, given that this one already has low latency. It's not a TV, so it's not going to support ALLM. Deep color output to automatic, RGB range to full. Now we should also adjust HDR on PS5. It's simple, just press next until you can see the sun. Here's the shape that's shown on the box. You can see in horizon forbidden waste. Here I am tuning shadow detail. You can see the difference between when I had it to 5 versus to 0 versus to -5. So it really depends on personal choice. I would sometimes put it to -5. It depends really on your personal taste on picture. But to me personally, I would set it to -5. And to me, it looks pretty magnificent. I truly start to appreciate how nice it is in HDR. I truly love this image quality. There is literally zero problems with it. You can see like in this scene, especially that I captured, especially for you guys to see how nice it is. Like at night, you see the pitch blackness of the sky, how stars are lighting up. You see these neon buildings, how strong of luminosity they have. Like it's just amazing. It feels like so immersive, very defined. You start to see more shapes and more colors. I don't know how to describe it, but I guess in this scene I started to see as a true power of QD-OLED. Just have a nice vivid colors and also pitch blacks and very bright HDR. It's so bright. I've never seen something of this kind. Everything looks nice on this monitor in my opinion. In a day scene like this one, you can also see the difference between black equalizer levels. So sometimes I will change it to 5 or 0 depending on game, as I said. But to me personally, I would prefer to have it on 0 for black equalizer. Perhaps shadow detail, I would keep it to -3, -2. But black equalizer, I would prefer it to be on 0 usually, depending on the scene. But you can see like after I set it this way, how trees and leaves become so like nice. Like I just start to see different colors, different shapes. It just feels so cinematic in my opinion. It feels like out of a trailer of a movie or a game. You know how they do so much processing during those videos when they make trailers. And it felt to me this way. Like it's the first time that I feel that I'm playing in a trailer actually. Like it feels very processed, very defined. Colors are very rich and vivid, and HDR brightness is very good. There is no gradient issues, no banding, screen banding, color banding. I guess you know my opinion about this monitor by now. It's very immersive, very great monitor in my opinion. If you are looking for a 32-inch gaming monitor, maybe it's a little bit overpriced given that it doesn't have an upscaling chip or a processor, and it doesn't feature a DisplayPort 2.1 natively. However, with its DisplayPort 1.4, it's going to suffice for 240 Hz at DSSC for PC. And for gaming consoles, you saw it support 120 Hz for PS5, no issues at all. So in my opinion, if you are looking for a gaming monitor that is made by a well-respected brand like Samsung, I would say that this one is going to be a good candidate. However, there is a lot of competition by Asus, MSI, Oros, etc., Alienware. So you're going to evaluate based on the price and whether you prefer a glossy or matte display. As I said, this one has a matte coating. So if you don't like matte finish on display, you're going to skip this one. I just wish it had a DisplayPort 2.1 personally and the processor. I also wish that it had a smart features like being supporting Tizen OS, like in case you don't want to use your PC, you have your PC turned off, in case you would like it to be acting as a smart monitor, like the previous model of the last year. I don't know why they skipped those features on it when it goes this high. But in my opinion, if you don't really care about this stuff, you can evaluate this monitor. Given that it's my first QD OLED monitor, I would say it delivered well and I quite like it. So guys, that was it for this video. I hope it was informative and you got an idea about this gaming monitor. Let me know in the comments below if you have any question and what you think about it. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, as I'm going to prepare more videos about different monitors and TVs by Samsung and LG and other brands as well. So I hope that you stay tuned. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next one.